Hi, and welcome to Super Anti-Aging Podcast with myself, Steve Halpern. A really fascinating study that I just got a chance to look through on Nature. And they analyzed with AI and all sorts of scientific modalities proteins in the blood. Okay. And we're talking not just a few proteins that people are familiar with, because again, proteins control their messages for things to happen. And this is fascinating because they were able to estimate speed of aging in different organs. So let's think of this in a bigger in a bigger perspective. How old's your heart, and how fast is it aging? Your kidneys, your brain, your eyes. They did 12 organs. And the practical applications, because if you know, and there was a correlation, interesting correlation in the study between actual conditions. It makes sense if your pancreas is aging at a rapid rate, your kidneys are aging at a rapid rate, or your heart is aging at a rapid rate. You'll wind up with dysfunction. I mean, I always love to go back to cars, and, you take good care of your car, you can have 200,000 miles. It just didn't age the way someone who drove a car terribly, and it's a total wreck. Now, do we have these tests yet? No, not yet. We have other age tests, which I think are valuable, that I use and a lot of aging gurus talk about. And I think they're, but they measure more one number. They measure basically whole system, not specific organs, which I think is totally amazing. Because then you know what to do. Well, if your heart's aging, even though, this is the interesting part. Maybe you don't have a marker yet. Maybe you don't have a symptom yet. But it's aging. And then you can apply various nutraceuticals, medications, lifestyle management that might address those specific speed of aging modalities. Now, I've done some aging studies on clients, and I had one client who had reversed their biological age by 15 years and a slow whole body compared to other people of her age, a much slower speed of aging. So, she was doing these things for years. She was living a healthy lifestyle. And so basically her biological age was 15 years younger than her chronological age of 80, she was 84. That's wonderful. So what can we do about this? All right. We can apply, before these tests are available, we can apply a system approach. That's what I ask people. Go into your body. A healthy microbiome. I mean, these are simplistic things. They're not complicated things. Simplistic things, not over. Controlling your blood sugar levels, exercising, controlling blood pressure, and then we get into the fascinating field that I'm so fascinated by is, the nutraceuticals, and this gets really tricky because, yes, supplements are basically unregulated. Well, does that mean they don't work? Because then we have the issue of who's going to spend money on huge clinical trials. Certainly not a company that can't recoup the funds for that. And sometimes there's crowdfunding, and sometimes there's grants, and no one really knows how these grants get done. So doing huge clinical trials on a nutraceutical is not necessarily going to happen. And so mainstream always says, well, there's no real studies on this. Who's going to do the studies? And it's nice with the internet and social media, people do get feedback. And a lot of doctors now are becoming functional medicine doctors, integrative doctors. And there's a sharing of this kind of information, and there's a lot of feedback, at conferences, at health conferences. So we're getting an idea, a basic idea of supplements that can make a difference. And speaking of this, I was watching a video the other day, and I know that Brian, the Blueprint, $200 million a year. No, it's $2 million a year. $2 million a year on this reverse aging program. Well, yeah, spend $2 million. The reason I'm mentioning him is that the video was on injecting young plasma into the blood of older people and whether there could be a difference. So far, very mixed response. we call that the vampire approach. The vampire approach to anti-aging. And yes, again, what's so exciting, and I've looked at this and hopefully I'll attend this year. There's lots and lots of major anti-aging, or we call longevity conferences. Not just gerontology. To me, that whole gerontology was the study of diseases for seniors. Well, think about this. That's a whole industry. You have doctors who are specializing in the diseases of seniors. And then we have the pharmaceutical interventions and all the support services for the diseases of gerontology. I didn't like that word, gerontology. I remember years ago, an aunt of mine had anxiety. She was in her 80s and really didn't have any major health issues. And because of anxiety, her daughter admitted to a hospital, major hospital in New York. And my gosh, before I knew it, I visited her, she had a tube down her throat and all sorts of interventions. And her gerontologist doctor said these words, what do you expect? She's an old person. What do you expect? And, unfortunately, that's somewhat of an attitude, a conditioned attitude. Well, what do you expect? You're an old person, you're a senior, you're going to get all these things. Well, I will tell you, and I work at it hard, and my mission as I expand these podcasts and hopefully, do a lot of video interviews with these brilliant scientists around the world and practitioners. I don't have these age-related conditions. I'm 77. My gosh. And then I look at people like Chuck Norris and all this. There are people out there I see on YouTube. They don't have these conditions. How come? How come they don't have these conditions? I'm not aligned for hip replacement, knee replacement. My brain is working even faster. I'm getting cataract surgery. My hearing's there. My hair's turning back to its natural color. How come? Well, since I had my first gym at 16 years old, I helped a neighborhood friend of mine lose weight. It was exciting to see the possibility of the body changing. Can you make changes? And you have to open up the possibilities. If you don't open up to the possibilities of change, that you might be able to change the physicality look, people have spontaneous cancer recoveries. Now, I'm not saying, the blind will suddenly see, but things that happen that even science at the stage where medicine doesn't really understand, they happen. So one of my favorites, and this is a general overview, I started this podcast with the idea of measuring organ age. And again, part of this focus is reversing age. And for nerds that want to see the actual study on the organ aging and these proteins, if you go to my Facebook group, which is Super Anti-Aging, I'll see if I can post the link there so you can go through it, read it yourself. I mentioned in, probably way back in podcast that there's an experiment that they took a group of, it was men, and they put them in an environment where they were exposed to things 20 years previous to their age, the music, and just creating an atmosphere. And when they did some age measurements, they were. So, yes, the premise of how old do you think you are? How old do you think you are? How old do you want to be? It's all about possibilities. And over again, the people in this field and myself trying to do your best to avoid age-related conditions. So I come to the end of this podcast. If you find this podcast valuable, interesting, please share this on your social media. Please subscribe so it shows up in search engines. I won't pass this on. I won't take your information or whatever and share it. No. Subscribing is just, I see that there are people who are going to get this information. So again, I want to thank you for listening. This is Steve Halpern.